Hello, I'm Molly Hughes in the Denver Post newsroom with today's DPTV Newsmaker. Our guest today is Dave Genova, General Manager and CEO of the Regional Transportation District, or RTD. Genova took the helm in March of 2016, just 1 month before the grand opening of the highly anticipated A-Line. And joining me in this conversation is Denver Post reporter John Aguilar, who has done extensive reporting on RTD. So together, we welcome Dave Genova. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. It's great being here, Molly and John.
We're going to bring in some of our audience questions. We posed the question on Facebook that if you could sit down with the head of RTD and ask him one question, what would that be? So we're going to start with a few of those. All right?
Great.
All right.
Dave, Don, Lara, and Murray all asked about the $9 fare to ride the A-Line to the airport. Don says he just returned from Minneapolis, where light rail from the airport to downtown was $2.25, even cheaper in non-peak times. And Murray says he rides the light rail to and from the airport in Phoenix and pays $2. Why is it more expensive here, and who set the fare, RTD or the contractor? And would it be cheaper if RTD operated the line alone?
Well, John, let me just first talk about who sets fares, because that's a that's a good question. We have a 15-member elected board of directors, and it's our board of directors that sets policy that then we as the staff of RTD implement and put into place. And then regarding our fare versus what you might see in other cities, there's, all cities have different kinds of fare structures, and some are a lot more than our trips to the airport. So I think you'd see a lot of variation all around the country.
All right, so Martine Walker asks the question, how is the implementation of the so-called quiet zone going, referencing the horns that sound every time a train passes? She asks, will we be able to open our windows and get some sleep this summer?
The Federal Railroad Administration requires commuter railroads and freight railroads to sound their horns at grade crossings. And so that is a federal rule requirement that we have to comply with, unless a railroad and a community goes through a quiet zone process. And that is our plan, to have quiet zones at all of the crossings on the Eagle project. That would be the University of Colorado A-Line, the B-Line, and then future for G-Line.
So now we're going to delve into some other questions for you. It's really clear that a lot of people in the audience just are confused about how much of that money, of the $591 million budget for this year, for example, comes from taxpayers. Can you help us understand a little bit the division of where the funding comes from?
Our entire operating budget, which I believe you're referring to in your question, about 60% roughly comes from our sales tax that we get through the 8-county RTD district. And then about 20% comes from fare box recovery, and about another 20% comes from various federal funds. So that that's the makeup of the general RTD revenue, if you will. Please
describe what the issue exactly is with the crossings on the A-Line that we've heard a lot about, that are currently have the flaggers. Is it all a software issue, or are there other issues at play?
The grade crossings have what we call a design activation time, and that the design activation time is the time between when the grade crossing activates. So the grade crossing activates with the flashing lights and the bells, and then so the time between that starts and when the train arrives at the crossing. In some cases, it's 8,000 feet away or more when that train's calling for that crossing, and so there can be lots of variables in between there. There might even be station stops. Really, that's the issue we're trying to solve, is to try to make that activation time as close as we practically can to the design time. It is not an issue of them not coming down when they're supposed to. They do that. It's a matter of, in the simplest terms, is that they're just down too long.
I've roughly calculated the cost of having those flaggers out there, some of whom are police officers, at those 11 crossings, to be around $5.4 million. While RTD is not paying for this, it's rather the contractor, Denver Transit Partners, as we've spoken about before. Do you worry that the continued presence of those flaggers could be tarnishing the RTD brand?
We're certainly all eager to get this beyond us and not to have the flaggers present at the crossing. I think that people ask themselves why. I mean, why are there? We see all kinds of crossings all over the place, but why are there attendants at these crossings? So I think it generates questions in people's minds. Yeah.
How frustrated are you with the G line and the delay of the G line, which will ultimately run from Union Station up to Wheat Ridge and Arvada? And what are you hearing from public officials about the opening of that?
At this point in time, we don't have either a predicted or anticipated opening date or a schedule of when we're going to get out onto the G line. But we do know that once we get the approval to get out there, you know, we're probably looking at maybe 2 to 3 months worth of testing and training to get it done and get it open.
All right, thank you, Dave, for being here with us. Dave Genova, the GM and CEO of Regional Transportation District. Thank you so much. And John, thank you for joining the conversation. We appreciate you being with us here today as well. You can check out all of our Newsmaker segments at denverpost.com/DPTV. For now, I'm Molly Hughes with John Aguilar in the Denver Post newsroom for DPTV.